Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you all for logging into the Sikh Research Institute webinar today. My name is Gobind Singh and I will be the host for today's session, and Nanak Singh will be the moderator. Nanak Singh will begin the presentation shortly, but before he starts, I'll take a few moments to run through some information to help sure this session runs smoothly for all of us. Nanak Singh will then provide some information about the Institute before handing over to Nanak Singh. Firstly, just to provide some orientation of the main screen you're looking at now, Nanak Singh's presentation will be displayed on the left-hand side of the screen, and you will be able to see each slide as he scrolls through, although you won't be able to navigate through the slides independently. On the right-hand side of the screen, you should see a number of smaller panes. If you can't see any right now, then please click on the panel's drop-down menu, which is towards the top right-hand of the screen, and select the Reset to Default option, and you should now be able to see a participant panel and a chat panel. During the session, if you wish to ask Nanak Singh questions at any time, you can do so by entering your question in the chat panel, which should be beneath the participant's pane, and sending it to Nanak Singh. Alongside your question, please include your full name and your city, and indicate whether or not you have a microphone attached to your computer. Nanak Singh will moderate the questions as applicable and forward them to Nanak Singh. If you have a microphone, Nanak Singh will invite you to come and ask your question. If you do not, then Nanak Singh will read your question out to all the participants. Please note, if you have a microphone that's integrated into your laptop or your desktop, then you will have to press the control button while you speak. At the end of the main presentation, there will be a general question and answer session. Again, if you'd like to ask a question during this time, then please forward it to Nanak Singh using the chat panel. If for any reason you experience any technical difficulties during the session and you can't see the main presentation, for example, then please do contact me via the chat panel. If you lose your internet connection, or if you have to restart your computer during the session, then you can easily rejoin by clicking on the URL that was included in your original confirmation email. Finally, at the end of the presentation, we will launch a testimonial and feedback window, and would appreciate if you could take a few moments to provide your feedback and comments on how this session went and on how we can improve future sessions. I'll now hand you over to Nanak Singh, who will provide some background to the Institute and to Nanak Singh. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Narinder Pal Singh and I will be the moderator for today's session. We are delighted to have you with us. Over the last 7 years, Sikh has focused on community development through programs. We ask for your financial support to continue this work. Please donate by visiting us on the web at www.sikhri.org. Thank you. We have an announcement today. Every year, the Sikh offers SIDDHC, a unique leadership development program for anyone seeking to increase their commitment towards the Sikh faith. 3 separate tracks are offered simultaneously. Sikhi 101 study is an overview of Sikh history and theology through structured learning, while in Sikhi 201, students delve deeper into the same subjects but through a more rigorous exploration. Thirdly, the language program focuses solely on the composition, structure, and language of Shri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. For more information, please go to www.sikhri.org and explore under Programs menu. Please apply for the program yourself and share information with others who may be interested. Let us begin our session today. Your instructor will be Harinder Singh. Harinder Singh is the co-founder and the Chief Programming Officer of the Sikh Research Institute. He addresses Sikh, Punjab, and South Asian issues throughout the world through articles, workshops, and presentations. His activism spans the context of contemporary realities as expressed in art, linguistics, development, theology, and politics. After a career in aviation, his work since 1997 has focused on education as a fulcrum for social change. It is my pleasure to give you Harinder Singh. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thanks to Gobind Singh and Narinder Pal Singh for introductions. Before I start, let me just clarify in the beginning that this presentation actually is I'm running on behalf of Surinder Pal Singh and myself. Surinder Pal is a research associate at Sikh Research Institute, and he has really put together this. And once we sort out technology issues from India and then he'll be helping us run these presentations as well. So I'm running it on behalf of both Surinderpal and myself. Welcome to all of you on this Saturday morning, at least on the West Coast, and then afternoon on the East Coast, I suppose, and evenings in the rest of the world, or night. What we're going to try to do today is, as you know, this presentation we have titled it Nation State in 20 Months, but what do we really mean by it and what exactly it will cover is looking at the details of how Khalsa Raj came into being. Sorry, let me go back to that slide. Before we get into it, in this presentation, we have all the images we have brought in are coming from Punjab Digital Library. They have provided that to us. If you are not familiar with it, I highly recommend all of you go to punjabdigilib.org. Basically, their mission is to find anything and everything related to Punjab and save it for perpetuity and with an online access. They're also this year commemorating this Khalsa Raj by providing exhibitions worldwide. And their first exhibition is about to happen. So if you happen to be in India or tell your relatives at Fatehgarh Sahib, there is the only exhibition happening at the ground where victory was, where Sarhand's battle took place at that area next week. And then in about 10 days or so, there will be exhibition in Melbourne as well. I'll provide more information on that later. So our agenda today is this. We want to look at basically what was the Guru's mission? What is the vision of the Gurus regarding what we now call nation or state or nation state, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Who was Banda Singh Bahadur and how did he execute this? What were his expeditions? Who joined him? Who helped them? What kind of weaponry he had? What kind of battles he had? What was the character of the people who joined him? Stuff like that. And then what are some of the peculiar features of the Sikh state, which Banda Singh Bahadur did establish? And we'll try to do that through numismatics as well as seal and other issues related to that. And then finally we'll end with how is all this relevant to you and me today, which basically what can you and I do today in today's realities of whether you stay in New Jersey or in British Columbia or Glasgow, or for that matter anywhere else in South Asia as well. So that's the agenda for today. And before I start, let me talk about meanings of these different words. So I'm going to put up these so we get at least the definitional elements out of this. You know, whenever we hear the word state, nation or nation state, there are particular images which pop into our minds. So here are definitions we have picked from Cambridge or Oxford. So those are the two most names, you know, you come up with dictionaries. So this is what they roughly say. State is basically a country or its government, or a large part of a country with its own government. And this is general, we know that. Nation, large group of people of same race who share the same language, tradition, and history, but who might not all live in one area. So, we have seen this word, nation word being used to describe Sikhs, like Sikh nation. And state will be, as we are used to, like what we call provinces or countries, that kind of idea. And nation state is an independent country, especially when thought of as consisting of a single group of people, large group of people, all sharing the same language, traditions, and history. So this is where, again, there is academic debates on what is the right word to describe a particular nation or country or anything of that nature. And even in the business world today, I was looking at, I think it's an Economist issue about a month ago, where the article was defining what makes a country in quite a state. And basically they said US State Department has 251 choices, but Yahoo Mail only gives you like 150 or 242. And depending on who you ask, some people consider some places to be nation or state or nation state or territories. So my point is, there is no single understanding of what really is a nation or a state or a nation state. So for our discussion purposes, without getting caught up into the legal and academic challenges we face in these issues, we'll say we'll stick to the word Raj. Now, I know Raj has its own connotations, especially from the British era, but we can think of it as being what the thinkers or philosophers earlier used to call republic. And in our context, this refers specifically to the Khalsa Raj, which is our point of discussion today. So nation state I used earlier to describe when we sent out the flyers, what we just talked about. But within our context, probably the best word to use is Raj because of the memory and traditions, as well as it has elements of state, nation, and nation-state ideas, which we'll cover today. So that being out of the way, let's get into what really is the Sikh vision. So I'm calling this a world waiting to be born. And to be honest, I borrowed this title from M. Scott Peck. He has a book on this in today's realities. But anyway, the vision, this slide, and let me put up all the verbiage here, is an interpretation from a Shabad by Bhagat Ravidas ji in Guru Granth Sahib. It's on page 345 as you see on your slide. But what I want to focus on is that every community, every sort of a religious ideology or a political ideology has a utopian vision. And in Sikh case, I'm not going to say it's a utopian vision, I'm going to say it is a vision. This is a vision which comes to us. There are several Shabads which can be used to describe this vision, but I picked to keep within context one Shabad. And the interpretation from that Shabad is, what is this place without sorrow? Be gam pura. Pura is a will, gam is worries, and be is without. Is there a place which is worryless, worry-free? And so within that Shabad, there are three elements I picked on, as I see the Shabad is based on, describes. There is a spiritual domain, there is a political state, and there is an economic situation or arena. And within this spiritual domain, what it talks about is that people who live in this kind of a space or place, or we can say in today's context, any of these ideas of state or nation state or nation or Raj as we are calling it, that people feel the divine presence. This is what makes the place peaceful. Today the world is talking about, I mean, you guys know where the red zones are, not just the ones which pop up on fixed noise or Fox noise or whatever you want to call it, which are just Afghanistan, Iraq, but there's so many other places which they are conflict zones, we'll call them. Maybe the divinity is not being felt. Maybe the evilness within people is perversion of mind that is operating, and that's why we don't have sort of a peace. So from a Sikh perspective, spiritually, people need to feel the divine presence, and people, citizenry of the world, not just a citizenry of a state or a municipality or a commonwealth, to borrow British ideas again, but citizenry of the world, they actually feel that they're fellow travelers toward a singular destination of creating this peaceful domain. Okay, and politically, the ideas in this Shabad are that the government is steady and stable, and it makes sure, it assures that everyone has an equal status. There are, in fact, the Shabad is very detailed in this respect. It says there are no second or third class statuses, because as soon as you have a second or third class status, you will have conflict, and that conflict creates fears or sufferings of one kind or the other, from both mental, psychological, political, economical, and all those things. So this idea of political state described in the Shabad is where there's a steadiness and stability in the government, and there is zero basically discussion on not having equal status. And today's reference, we can interpret that in various forms in next slides. Economically, basically, the taxation is really mentioned here quite a bit. There are no unfair taxation. Again, these are what we will call general directives, and we have to interpret these. So there are no unfair taxes. People are wealthy and they're contented. Those who live in this kind of state, they feel wealthy and they feel contented. And excellence and fame, which maybe can speak to the work ethics, that the people are excellent in what they do, and this is what they're famous for. So they're not famous for other things as we might have criterias, but they're famous for quality of work ethic, no fair taxation, and people who live in it are contented. This sort of reminds me of, if you remember the original Star Trek with William Shatner as a captain, how he, I remember watching it in early 80s, and they would talk about that 3 centuries later, people were not after money, but the real fame was after people who had knowledges. So maybe in this vision, what we are saying is, in the Guru's vision, in Guru Granth Sahib, is that economically people need to feel contented, and it's based on not fair taxation. Politically, governments need to be stable, and everyone who lives in this state is not just a citizen, but is a fellow traveler. Okay, so this is the vision which I contend I'm submitting is in Guru Granth Sahib regarding what kind of a place we are looking for. Now what happens is there is a meeting of Guru Gobind Singh Sahib and what we now popularly call Banda Singh Bahadur. What we know, these are recollections from historical records as well as some of it is oral tradition as well. But what we do know is, and we'll get into Bhangra's background, that this vision has to be implemented. This vision is going to get implemented. And the only leader, Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, after the Vaisakhi of 1699, the only one who is handpicked to deliver on this mission is Banda Singh Bahadur, which means, you know, we got to understand about this man, his background, his capabilities and stuff like that. And what does he tell? He says, Guru orders him that he needs to provide certain directions to Sangat. He gives him 5 arrows, tir, a sword and a drum, Ranjit Nagada, council of 5, 6. Basically, he's an implementer. If there are decisions to be made, then here are the 5 who is going to be his council, and they need to figure out what to do. And what was his role within that? His role became very clearly to establish Sikh sovereignty and uproot tyranny. And to do that, he had to come up, obviously he had to lead a war. There was a lot of planning involved. There was a governance of what the Khalsa will do wherever Khalsa becomes successful. So it is very clear from Zafarnama as well as contemporary sources, and if you are interested in it, one of the sources which is readily available is Irfan Habib and J.S. Garewal's Persian sources on Sikh history. But in addition to that, I do want to mention Surinder Singh. Dr. Surinder Singh has a book on Banda Singh Bahadur, and very soon several very detailed accounts of Banda Singh Bahadur's administration and strategies is coming out from a professor at Guru Nanak Dev University, Dr. Balwant Singh Dhillon. So anyway, this part is really not contested, this slide which is being presented here, that what did Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj ask Banda Singh Bahadur to do, and his mission, this has essentially became to uproot tyranny and establish Sikh sovereignty. Again, the vision is in Guru Granth Sahib. Here is an individual who is tasked to do that. He's sort of like an implementer of this vision under the guidance of 5, 6. So let's find out a little bit about the man. Now, you can see it on your slides, but basically what you will come across about the background of Banda Singh Bahadur is that he has had several sort of lifestyles, from Lakshman Dev to Madhav Das Bairagi. Again, there are different lifestyle choices he has had. For example, he used to be a hunter, and during one of his hunting expeditions, he kills a pregnant deer, and that upsets him, and he becomes a Bairagi. And so, at the time when Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj meets him in what we, in the central to South India, he's 38 years old. It's in September of 1708, and his lifestyle at the time is that he is what we call Bairagi now, or what is known as Bairagi. Now, I want to focus a little bit on what does that mean when somebody says he's a Bairagi. In fact, there are several sort of explanations, and I'll share one with you. So when Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj is in Deccan, which is a region, he reaches at the banks of Godavari where Madhav Das Bairagi was living. And what is known is that Madhav Das Bairagi wasn't at his dera or in his place. So Guru Gobind Singh reaches his hut, and he sits on a cart, and some of the disciples of Madhav Das run and inform him that somebody has come, and this person comes back to his dera, and he notices, there are different elements here, that this tries to use occult powers to throw off Guru from the cart. He gets upset because he sees goats being slaughtered in his thing, and he's a strict vegetarian, and stuff like that is going on. Nobody really knows the exact dialogue which takes place between Guru Sahib and Madhav Das Bairagi, but a question which is quite a bit related in narratives is, Guru asked Madhav Das Bairagi after this sort of a rage and trying of powers and discussions, that who was he? And eventually a divine plot, as they say in Sikh narratives, is unfolded, and Madhav Das Bairagi says, I am your Banda. Again, the reason I'm sort of briefly skipping over this stuff is that really, does it really matter to us? All we know is that Madhav Das Bairagi was living in that area. He has an encounter with Guru Gobind Singh, and Guru's job, as we know from Gurbani, is to instruct, to teach, to transform. And we have talked about this in other webinars. For example, Jin Manaste Devte Kiye Karat Na Lagi War. It takes a split second for a guru to change an average person into a angel-like behavior. Or my favorite shabad in the context of Banda Singh Bahadur I'll mention here is, you know, there's a shabad which says, Ulay Marag Jinay Bataya, Aisa Gur Vadpagi Paya. So those of us who feel lost, how do we really become fortunate? When we discover the path. And maybe this is what happened here, that Banda Singh Bahadur, who we now call Banda Singh Bahadur, discovered the path. Guru Gobind Singh entered his life, and in that confrontation, in visually looking at the Prophet, in conversing with the Prophet, in Guru Sahib instructing him, dialoguing with him, we discover there's a transformation in an individual who at that time is Madhav Das Bairagi, and where he replies when Guru Gobind Singh asks him, so who are you? And his response becomes, I'm your Banda. Now, so in background, you know, because he used to be a hunter, he was also become a Bairagi, so which means you got the element of the trainings are already there to fight, and trainings in spirituality and texts are there in a second lifestyle. We again, you know, it says in early life on the slide that he was part of a Rajput family. Some say he was a Brahmin from Jammu area. I really don't want to get caught up into it. There are going to be different versions of these, and I'll address some of it, why there are different versions in one of the slides. But all we know is that he did have two different lifestyles before he met Guru, and part of those lifestyle will give us some elements of understanding to us that how he thinks and how he behaves, both in the battlefield as well as in terms of governance. So that's a little bit of a background on Banda Singh Bahadur. By the way, just so, still on the previous slide, historically, what we have also discovered is, where I think most scholars agree, is that actually Banda Singh Bahadur is not his name. He is called Banda because he replied, I am your Banda to Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj. And Bahadur is because he became a great warrior. Historically, what's acceptable is that his name was Gurbaksh Singh. So he, you know, so he became from Lakshman Dev to Madhav Das Bairagi to Gurbaksh Singh, but because of his popularity among Sikhs, his known title became Banda Singh Bahadur, but his name is Gurbaksh Singh. Okay, so let's get into nitty-gritties of what is happening. Things what constituted the successes behind Khalsa Raj, because you know he's leaving Deccan with 5 Sikhs, 5 arrows, and by the time he reaches Sarhand, I mean it's a journey of, if you think about it, in those days people are coming on horses, I don't know, anywhere from 6 months to 13 months. So why do people join him? An average person joins him. Why do they do that? What kind of vision is he carrying? What is he implementing? What is he saying to them? Where an average villager, average Sikh, average tiller of the soil, individual who is empowered to take on the mightiest dynasty India had seen in the last 2000 years, which was the Mughals, or reminiscences of Mughals. So what did he have? Now, I know not enough work has been done, so we'll be just briefly touching these things on these. But basically, he was an excellent strategist. If we just look at it from that angle, how he consolidated untrained people to very minimal training, how he took on smaller, what we might call city-state or municipalities, or we'll say smaller cities first, and then going on to the larger issues. This combining elements of when do you do a concentrated attack, to surprise attack, to mobility, and all those things to minimize, you know, to work with very meager resources and also to minimize casualties. And he was very big on looking at strategic points. I have had opportunity, some of you maybe have visited this places called Sadhwara as well as Lohgarh, where they are they're like you can look at miles from those points, at least from Mughalispur or Lohgad, which we'll talk about in a minute. So knowing strategically what areas to overpower or capture first, so you have some advantage at planning and being able to look at distances. I once attended, and unfortunately I don't have maps right now to share those with you. There used to be a lecture called Chilianwale Memorial Lectures at Imperial Hotel in Delhi, and first lecture was delivered by General Randhawa, the general who's in the Indian Armed Forces, and the whole lecture was on the war strategies of Banda Singh Bahadur. He had, if you ever get a chance to get a copy of that booklet, I highly recommend it, where he shows with incredible mappings that not only just the localities and the thought out processes, but even the strike positions he took on, how his infantry, to use today's word, and how his cavalry dealt with these issues was incredible. And the studies done by General Randhawa. Anyway, the second element we want to look at is that he was not shy about delivering justice, including to nobles at the time, which would basically mean they're not the army, but they are, within the Western ideas we might call they're the knights, or they are some of the royal family relatives, or they're appointed by the emperor or the king. One of the major reasons he did was, in fact, the major reason was because of their behavior with women. So there was a zero tolerance for certain issues, and one of the zero tolerance was people who misbehaved toward women. He basically took care of them pretty clearly. And we'll talk about what kind of religious freedoms were established. Even those who oppressed people, how their places were untouched. And then the last element I want to talk about a little bit is I want to compare sort of why do we have so many versions of Banda Singh Bahadur. And I want to make it, sorry, that name is supposed to be Jarnail Singh. It's misspelled. That is supposed to be right here. I'm referring to this. That's supposed to be Jarnail Singh. And I'm referring this to Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. So what I'm trying to say here is that if we look historically and look at the trends within Sikh history, if you have an individual who's very, very successful in understanding the Guru's vision and implementing the Guru's vision, you're going to have not only what I generally say they're assassinations, but also character assassinations, which means you'll have multiple stories. There is a disinformation campaign. Just like if you go in Sikh circles, you look at the books, you look at the conversations, there are so many controversies attached to Banda Singh Bahadur regarding his background. So we really don't know who he was sometimes. Or people will say the reason he was tortured to death in such a gruesome way was because how he did not follow Guru's orders. And just to cite one, because he got married and Guru Gobind Singh told him not to get married. So we got to question those kind of sort of details when they come to us. Will Guru Gobind Singh even give a message like that to his Jathedar? My point here is that if you do come across Banda Singh Bahadur, aka Gurbaksh Singh's story, which are not making sense, well, I'm making it relevant that a lot of stories we know about Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale also don't make sense. Like, for example, the myth that he was a Congress high agent, which has become so commonly mentioned almost every book which comes out. But if you look at even statements of Tirlochan Singh, who was a secretary of President Zail Singh, he writes that there was no correlation. So my point is, if there are various versions, some of it is intentional, some of it could be lack of information, but the trend seems to be that if there is a successful general of the Sikhs, there are going to be a lot more confusions. Okay. Now, a little bit about his leadership. We know, well, maybe we don't know, but what we do know is that, actually let me just share the quotes, that Banda Singh Bahadur was eventually captured. If I am a leader, I might say, man, wrong people joined my thing and they screwed things up. Yes, there was a little bit of a plunder or loot, but I didn't do it. My people did it. I want you guys to look at this response. This is an individual, Muntakabu Labab, and Khafi Khan is the guy who asked the questions. This is Muhammad Amin Khan asked a question to Banda Singh Bahadur. And his question, you guys can read there. He says, your present demeanor exhibits signs of wisdom and sense of justice. How were you led to such ways that you did not consider the consequences of your deeds, and for a few days of this ill-destined life, committed such cruelties and audacious deeds upon Hindus and Muslims? So basically he's saying is, if you are so good, how come you are captured now? Because, remember there are so many stories about him. One of them was that guy has a lot of magic, and that if he wanted to, he could escape from the cage and stuff like that. And if he is so good, then how come he's captured? And I really like Banda Singh Bahadur's response. Let's look at his response, which is recorded in that book mentioned below. He says, in all religions and communities, whenever disobedience and defiance in excess of all limits begins to be displayed by man, the embodiment of rebellion, the true deliverer that should be deliverer of justice, then appoints someone as cruel as I to impose penalty on man for his sins, so that he may become the means for effecting retribution on that community for its misdeeds. When he wants to make the world desolate, he entrusts the country to the hands of cruel man. Afterwards, for the punishment of his own misdeeds, he bestows victory over him to a man of authority like you, so that he too obtains punishment for his deeds in this world, as we and you are now witnessing. I find this incredible. This is amazing. This has so many insights about Sikh lifestyle, Sikh vision, and Sikh idea of leadership and ownership and responsibility. What he's basically saying is, here are the things I'm getting out of it. First thing he says is, yes, there were excesses. When we run a political campaign, when we run a military campaign, there are going to be people, remember, who joined his campaign? An average person, an untrained person. And yes, sometimes when groups of people join campaigns, there are going to be elements who don't know what they're doing. And they might do it for their personal gains, and they might do it for their individual or community, or as we say in Punjabi, casteist or tribalist mentalities for their gains. But what Banda Singh Bahadur says is, but I was their leader, excesses got committed, so I take ownership for it. And what is happening to me is because everything Sikhi is about here and now. This idea of that something will happen to us after we are gone from this world, like in a heaven or hell type idea. He says, no, everything gets balanced in this life. Everything gets balanced while I'm alive. This is the idea of Marjivada in Gurbani as well. So he's saying, whatever excess I have committed, I take responsibility. I'm paying for it right now. And that's okay. You do your job. I have done my job. God has brought me into this. Guru brought me into this system because there was too much cruelty, and I tackled it, and I also committed excesses. My people did it, but I take responsibility for it. I love it. I think this is one of the most wonderful quotes I have come across, which gives so many insights into what Sikh vision is, what the idea of Sikh responsibility is, as well as how the larger idea of justice is operating within this world. So everything happens here and now. It is not about making people false assurances about meeting virgins in heaven. I'm just borrowing phrases from other places, or that you will rot in hell afterwards. Everything happens here and now. This is about the vision which Banda is carrying with him. And anyway, so what happened? You might be wondering, why did I talk about his martyrdom slide first? Well, I want to again this really is not to me about martyrdom. To me, this is about the stuff, the metal he was made of. As I frequently say, if you've seen The Last Samurai, when Tom Cruise goes in front of the Japanese king and he asks him, tell me how he died, and Tom Cruise looks at him, he goes, no, I'll tell you how he lived. So this is how Banda Singh Bahadur was thinking. Remember I talked about his background as a hunter and his background as a Bairagi, and then conversation and confrontation with Guru Gobind Singh? The teachings Guru Gobind Singh must have given him, in addition to his earlier backgrounds, made him what he was. So he thought about what he was doing, he was good at what he did, and he took ownership. Not only brought in the Sikh ideology into this idea of karma, which is totally misunderstood among the Sikh masses today, he fully understood it, and how he brought the ideology to operate within him, and he tried to implement that in the community he was envisioning and setting up and establishing during the Khalsa Raj. So what did happen in those 7 stormy years, as some of the historians have called it? So here is a brief timeline. So we are, well, He meets the Guru in September of 1708. Within first year, he reaches Punjab, and one of his first battle, he reaches Kathal, then Samana. These are the cities you'll come across in history, and look at his campaigns. So this guy is, you know, I was just personally reflecting a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, I was saying to my good friend Devinder Pal, who heads the Punjab Digital Library, that how I feel. You know, I feel so tired. I'm old. And he next morning sent me an email. He said, you know, we have been working on Banda Singh Bahadur exhibition, and I just came across this line that Banda Singh Bahadur was 38 when he was running these campaigns. He's like, you and I, you feel old right now, and you're not even 38. So imagine this in reality. He's a 38-year-old man with very meager resources. The only thing he got with him is Guru's Thapda. That's it. So you know how in our activist world, in our political world, in our religious sort of divisiveness world, whatever world we operate in, at home front, Gurdwara front, community front, SGPC front, we get so disgusted. And we're like, man, things will ever happen. I'm getting old. I don't know. I've put in good years of my life into these things. And here's a reminder. A 38-year-old man comes. He's not a guru. So I know sometimes when we talk about gurus, we get into this, oh, they were gurus idea. But here is a man like you and me, struggling in life, changing lifestyles. But aisa gurvat bhagi paya. Ulai marg jinhe bataya. A lost individual discovers Guru, and his mission is so clear, he gets on the campaign. And look at his campaigns. He's gone to Kathal, Samana, Kuram, Kapuri, Sadhora. Sadhora is one of the first major sort of a setup he does in this place. This is in current days, I think it would be Haryana or maybe Himachal, I'm not sure. And then the biggest battle which takes place, which I'll talk about, which is the anniversary, which is when most historians agree that he declares the victory and starts the calendar in the name of the Guru, is the Battle of Chapparchiri, which is in like today's Chandigarh, within few miles of Chandigarh. Then expeditions in Lahore, Lohogarh, then he comes back to Jammu, consolidating things in Jammu, then he goes to Kalanor, Batala, Gurdas Nangal, and eventually he's captured and his martyrdom in 1716. If you have not visited Gurdwara called Katalgah, about half a kilometer from today's where the Qutub Minar stands in Delhi, I highly recommend you go there. You will not find a nice looking marble structure there. Well, maybe some bulldozer Baba did that today. But what you do find is where he was captured and kept alive and mentally tortured for weeks by Sikhs being killed in hundreds every day. And then eventually, and we'll talk about it, where he died. Sikhs need to understand these places. This is like, you know, I recommend everyone to go to Washington, D.C. and look at the Holocaust Museum. But if we want to understand the man named Banda and his vision, his implementation of his vision and the opportunity costs of that within his own life, we must go to Gurdwara Katalgah. This is roughly the timeline. His campaigns, how he is developing more Sikh Sangats to help further the mission of the Guru, and part of that mission was to uproot tyranny. Just to give some flavor to what was happening, and I think we should take some questions. I'm getting some questions, but we'll, if you have them, please send it to the moderator, not to me directly, so I'll know which ones I need to go after. Okay, I'll start taking them in a minute. I want to talk about these two battles, so we have some understanding of what was happening. So the first major battle is the one near Sarhand. He captures the major forts around Sarhand area. He has several battles within that area. Wazir Khan is the official who runs the place. He fights with them. He has taken over cannons, elephants, artillery. So he is developing his own resources while he's doing. And not only he is able to kill Wazir Khan in that campaign, he uproots his whole sort of a system in that area. So let's go back to that slide, the one slide back. Look at the timeline. He meets the Guru sometime here in September, and the battle we are talking about is right here, Chapparchiri. The first, like one of the major battles. Before that, you have smaller battles. So what is this period? He is just traveling to Punjab first of all, and after traveling within a year, he actually overthrows Sirhind. Now, interesting way to look at Sirhind is the name comes from Sir-e-Hind. Sir means border, Hind means Hindustan, the border of Hindustan. So basically, the native Indians used to be more of a ruler than the rest of the country with different city-states. From here onwards, northwest onwards from Sirhind were the more militaristic people or invaders who had taken their territories. So Sirhind is, again, it's very symbolic. The border of India, what we today call India, the border of Hindustan or Hind at that time, is that city where the biggest cantonment of the military was there. He goes and takes over. This is very, very symbolic, guys. I know it has Sikh historical symbolism as well, because Chote Sahibzades were martyred there. In addition to that, which we already know, this is where the battalion of the imperial forces were largest in the area. And the second battle is the Battle of Gurdas Nangal, where he does not have a great fort. It's a mud fort. At Kot Mirza, between Kalanur and Batala, those are the cities. I'll give some geographical maps to show where these things are. Again, this battle takes place. Eventually, this is where he's captured. There's a huge battle, and there's a fortification. He's caught up there for months and still fighting, not having enough supplies. Eventually, they capture him in 1750 in Gurdas Nangal area. So those are the two major battles. We can read up. You can read up more on this history, but I want to just mention that what was happening in these places. So what is he fighting with? Who is fighting on his behalf? Who joined him? According to cover in Taskara, the majority of the people were Sikhs and who were the tillers of the soil. So what we will call small farmers, maybe even farm laborers. Few of them who joined him were mercenaries and looters as well. Remember I mentioned earlier when he's captured and asked a question and he takes responsibility. So anyone who joined him, I mean, he took responsibility for all of them, although a very, very small number were mercenaries and looters. That happens in movements. So what did they discover? What did he fight with? When he was captured, what was confiscated? 1,000 swords, 217 small kirpans and daggers, 114 daggers, 278 shields, 173 bows, and 180 rifles. So you are taking on the largest dynasty and its Mughal dynasty's forces in various areas in India, specifically Punjab in this case, with this kind of stuff. Untrained people. If ever there is a movie which must be made about Sikhs, I don't want to say he's our Braveheart. I think he reaches much bigger destinations than Rusty Wallace. Anyway, we'll if there is somebody sitting there has the funding and the vision, maybe that's the movie to be made on Banda Singh Bahadur. And other than the weapons, what else did they fight? They found sickles, forks, shovels, and axes. So this is Bastille is nothing in front of what happened here. Bastille was just a proclamation with few people joining, which didn't even overthrow the government. Here is something much bigger than French Revolution. I mean, this Sikh Revolution or Khalsa Raj, which gets established after these battles, this is what it's fought with. Okay, here is a map of the territories. The area we are talking about is primarily this area. Oops, it's actually sort of this area, but the next map, this is the old map of Punjab. This is where the Pakistan side is now, and this is the Indian sides. But the exact territories and forts are more visible in this map. I know this is not very big and it's hard to see, but wherever you see boxes and dots, it shows you his campaigns. So his campaign, Banda Singh Bahadur's campaign, starts right here in Delhi. This is Delhi where I'm circling. Okay, this is just for reference. And here the big dot is Lahore. So his journey is from where? His journey, let me see if I can find a bigger one. Okay, his journey is roughly going, look at these areas. Here, and it's not exactly in this way, but I'm just showing you which areas are involved. Boxes, yeah. This. So basically he's going northwest. That's where he's going. Yeah, he's going northwest. Okay. So basically, if you go from Delhi here onwards, see there is Sonipat here, there is Kathal here. I don't know if you're able to see these things, but boxes and dots. So there are essentially what I'm trying to show is there are lots of distances involved here. There's a lot of territory which is being covered. This is not a small thing, small area. You know, if you look at the European nations now or earlier ones were maybe a little bigger. If you look at now, they're not large territories. And this is the idea of republic, that's why comes in, the idea of Raj comes in, that this is the territory we are dealing with. Okay. Before I go into more on the territories, I'm going to take a couple of questions now. So the question which I have right now, it says there is no mic. No, I guess it did not go. Harjot Singh, could you please elaborate on the point of noble men of Mughals? Oh, okay. Harjot Singh doesn't have a mic and he is calling us from Toronto or asking us from Toronto. Noble men essentially meant that, you know, in every sort of culture, I think it's pretty much universal in Europe as well as in South Asia and even somewhat here, but mostly in Europe and South Asia where you had monarchical structures. Noble people were considered those who either were relatives or were considered not a commoner. So it was considered almost okay to punish commoners earlier whenever you win a battle, but not people who belong to, let's say, either emperor's lineage or appointed officers by him. So nobility will refer to either lineage angle or somebody who's not a commoner, elites who were ruling. So he was not scared, or he did not spare elites. That's another way to look at it. Thank you for asking that. So how can we say it was an independent Sikh state, at the first independent Sikh state to be more accurate? Well, he appointed generals under the Sikh councils to run particular administrative areas. He had a capital. Capital with an O means the building, which is called Lohgad. Today there is not much reminiscence of it. And the city is called Mukhlispur. And the forts which are in that area were against Sadora and Lohgad. So we were talking about territories, and this is how he was running those territories. The coin he released there, which I am sure you guys have seen before, and you can look at it and you read what's written on the both sides of the coin. But the interesting thing is again about the Sikh vision. The coin replica you are shown is from 1711, which is the second year of Sikh rule, but the calendar started in 1710. So what does it say? It says, coin struck in both the worlds by the guarantee of Guru Nanak's sword and by the grace of sovereign master, victory to Guru Gobind Singh, the King of Kings. I find this very interesting and I like it because Guru Nanak is the one who carried the sword and Guru Gobind Singh is the one who gracefully used it to guarantee this to us. And this is very much in line with what's written in Gurbani. When we look at Ramkali Ki War, for example, the word used to describe what was transferred from Guru Nanak to Guru Angad and Guru Angad to Guru Amar Das and henceforth, it says Khadag. The sword of wisdom was transferred. So symbolism of sword is used there in Gurbani, and the coin also says it is Guru Nanak, Guru Gobind Singh who guarantee this. There is always a guarantor on the coin, so the guarantor is Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh. And the other side of the coin says minted in the age of peace. Usually you write the year it's done. Year 2 is what he writes, but he says that what is the age? Age is of peace because people are peaceful now. By the blessed fortune of the Khalsa, which means Khalsa has brought on the peace. In this city, he does not name the name of the city because the territories are all over the place. And basically, Khalsa is the one who implemented this vision is what he's after. And this is how the age of peace came about. We find similar ideas on his seal as well. And let's look at that. And this is what the seal says. Sorry, let me go back to it. Seal of the Khalsa Raj was this. Deg Fateh o Nusrat Bedarang, Yaft az Nanak Guru Gobind Singh. The cauldron to feed, sword to defend, and the resultant victory have been achieved with the unrestrained help received from Guru Nanak to Guru Gobind Singh. So this, you know, the short of this phrase we use quite a bit these days, Deg Fateh. And Deg Fateh is exactly this. He basically created economic and political realities where everyone could be fed. Like today, this will be an issue of poverty and feeding. People are going hungry. And secondly, there's allowing political rights of the people. That's what Deg and Teg is, and Fateh is the victory. I know this has become a huge war cry or a rally cry for Sikhs, but really, it's the second part is unrestrained help. What was Banda Singh Bahadur really doing? He's saying continuously Sikh is supposed to supply both Teg and Teg. We are supposed to become harbinger of these things in the world. What rights and freedoms were established within the Khalsa Raj? Okay, let's look at it. These are land reform. If nothing else, any of the historians who write about Sikhs, if they don't like anything else other than this, they all mentioned at least this point, that the biggest land reformation ever occurred in India was when Banda Singh Bahadur was running the Khalsa Raj. He abolished the zamindari system, which basically means the land was distributed to the tillers. And what does that mean? That earlier, until Banda Singh Bahadur, 3/4 government kept it and 1/4 the farmers had it. And under Banda Singh Bahadur period, he reversed it. This is not a small, I call it even a reform, which is what the most historians write, is it does not capture what he did. He actually reversed it. I would say it's not a reform, it's a total revolution again. That 3/4 of the land went back to the tillers of the soil and 1/4 was retained by the administration or the government. So basically, and by the way, the sorry state we have today is, if you look in Punjab, I don't have the exact statistics, but 15 or 16 families have captured 80% of the Punjab's land again. So we have gone back to the zamindari system. But point is that this is to call it a reform is a misnomer. He totally uprooted the old system and he created administrative systems only to support the government, and the rest was given back to the people who it belonged to. Religious rights, just one example of that. No dargah in Sadara and Sarwand were demolished. Remember the two biggest campaigns he did? He made sure, the common thing to do in those days was to demolish other parties' religious places or places of their saints. They were not touched, including the Naqshbandi Dargah. This is very important because Naqshbandi is one of those orders who were vehemently against the Sikhs, who worked with the administration. They were the religious orders who worked with the administrations, including playing a huge role in the martyrdom of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, Chote Sahibzade, and other Sikhs and Sikh populations. So they were the religious, from a Sikh angle, we can say they were the religious fanatics who worked with the government to make sure Sikhs were abolished or killed, annihilated, sorry. And one of the quotes written about this is, the wretched Nanak worshipper. Now, this is from Akhbarat-e-Darbar-e-Maula, which basically means these is the news items in how the perceived enemy sees you. Sikhs don't have enemies, so I'm calling it perceived enemies. So those who feel Sikhs are their enemies, this is what they wrote. So their language is going from that tone, but we need to take what's written in this. He says the wretched Nanak worshipper, implying Banda Singh Bahadur, had his camp in the town of Kalanur. He has promised and proclaimed, I do not oppress the Muslims. Any Muslim who approaches him, he fixes a daily allowance and wage and looks after him. He has permitted them to recite khutbah and namaz. As such, 5,000 Muslim have gathered around him. Now, this is incredible again, right? So he's not taxing people like Muslims used to tax. Even now, this is happening in Afghanistan, if you have seen it, and some places in Iraq. This is the character again, and again, minority rights you talk about, or even sometimes in the case of apartheid, it was the majority who was subdued. When Banda Singh Bahadur is running this republic, the Khalsa Raj, Muslims have given complete rights to practice whatever they need to practice. So today, if we use vengeance or hatred in America towards Islam or Muslim or Islamophobia, or because of 47, Sikhs are going those modes, we need to become very, very careful. Even in the toughest time, the best general we have had, handpicked by Guru Gobind Singh, he did not even practice those things. Little bit about his, when he was captured, there were more than 700 men. Some books say 740 Sikh men were captured, and some say 780. We'll say over 700 were captured. So what happened here? Let's look at again. Well, you can read the slide. It says during the executions, mother of one of them. Basically, so the story is, one of the narratives is that one of the mother wants her son released, and the son's response is that she's not my mother, she's the one who's lying. So the emperor, Muhammad Farrukh Sayar, took pity on that deceiving woman and appointed a mace bearer from the court to secure her son's release. So basically, this woman pleaded and that he does not belong to Banda Singh Bahadur, so the order is being released. That artful woman reached her son with the order of his release. When the executioner was standing over the head of that rebel, she gave the order of his release. Her son, however, cried out, "My mother lies. I am, heart and soul, a life-sacrificing believer and devotee of my guide. Send me soon to join my companions, already killed," implying, you can kill me too, I don't give a damn. So what is this saying? Now, I don't want to focus on what mother is saying. I understand what families might do to secure releases. This is really about more than 700 men go through this rather than give up. This is where Puran Singh's poem comes alive to me when he says, "Death is the bride of the brave." This is where Guru Granth Sahib's line like, "Purja Purja Katmare Kabu na chhade khet" comes, that you fight on behalf of the downtrodden instead of leaving the battlefield. And it doesn't mean today that battlefield is about physically sacrificing, but whatever issue you have chosen to champion. What this means is, this has never happened where not a single person breaks from declaring that they belong to the Guru and they're part of the campaign which Banda Singh Bahadur is running. Whereas in another tradition, even the closest apostles, in the case of Jesus, even refused to acknowledge that they belong to him when he's being crucified. Huge comparison here between a Sikh of the Guru and how if the leadership is capable, not a single person leaves the leadership. Okay. I'm going to quickly go through the rest of the slides and then we need to go into general Q&A. So what was the effect of all this? This is the history after Banda Singh Bahadur. He basically broke the hegemony, the slavery which was being practiced in India for 700 years, and he prepared Sikhs for the 18th century when they had to fight with Afghans and Iranians and the Mughal Empire. He prepared them how in the toughest time in Chota and Vadda Kallukara, you keep implementing the vision. Even when that Darbar, in last century, in last 25 years, we had desecration of Darbar Sahib one time. And look, we haven't even come back with any consolidated response in 25 years. Perhaps it's lack of understanding Guru's vision. When this is happening in 18th century, they still have a response ready. And Ratan Singh Pangu then captures this spirit where he says, what really kept Sikhs going, including Khalsa Raj onwards, was that they did not accept their subservience to anyone. They were either sovereign or in the state of rebellion. This idea of sovereign or rebel, ruler or rebel, remains consistent in Banda Singh Bahadur and 100 years after him. Now coming back to it, what does all this mean? So I'm going to just use vocabulary of Sardar Jagjit Singh, to describe this. He says, and this is what he has captured, studying Khalsa Raj, studying Sikhs, studying Gurus, and these are our reasons to exist. Why do Sikhs exist? As we see in the life of Banda Singh Bahadur, what he is able to do in 20 months, when he meets Guru Gobind Singh in September of 1708 to 1710 in May, are 20 months. What was he able to do? How was he able to do it? Who was with him? What were his resources? Well, all those answers we sort of kind of covered, but really the biggest thing was that Guru's mission was to set up an egalitarian society. So the question for us remains, are we existing today to create an egalitarian society? Which basically means where you affirm or promote or characterize the belief that everyone is equal in political, economic, social, civil, and other arenas which we have now developed since those days. Secondly, we fought religious and political domination. That's what Banda Singh Bahadur did. He did not create a new religion, as some people might do after winning. Yes, there were some factions which were developed, which were eventually solved out. He was fighting the hegemony which came from Islam at the time and the Mughals who were dominating it politically. And he captured political power not for himself, but for a plebeian mission, which means for a common folks. And the biggest evidence of that is the 3/4 of the land went to the people, and 1/4 was kept administratively to run the state. So why do we exist today? Just like in those days, Sikhs existed, in addition to our personal disciplines of Seva and Simran, Path and Kirtan, those are all our disciplines. And all those are trainings. So we are able to do this as Banda Singh Bahadur did along with his companions. To develop an egalitarian society, to fight religious and political domination, and to capture political power for an average person. So what does all this mean to you and me? Let me just put, I have picked only 3 things, which to me makes it real for what we can do. And then the question then becomes, are we ready to be Guru's Banda? I know we all think ਅਸੀਂ ਬੰਦੇ ਬਣੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੀ ਕਹਾਵਤ ਹੈਗੀ. In fact, I find this very interesting that the ਆਪਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਬੰਦਾ ਬਣ ਜਾ. We tell humans to become a human, which means that we are acting like animals. So maybe the response of Banda Singh Bahadur is incredible here, that I am your Banda, that I have become Gurus now. So the question of becoming Gurus is, here are 3 things. Can we remain focused on the Sikh vision? And part of that vision is creating Begumpura, which has a spiritual element, economic element, and a political element, as discussed earlier. And so how do we remain focused on Sikh vision? So can all of us, Sikhs, can individually as collectively, can we filter out all these noises we have going on of divisiveness? That's just one element. But the first major thing is, how do we remain focused on Sikh vision? I submit to you the Khalsa Raj became a reality because Banda Singh Bahadur was focused on the mission to implement the vision which Guru gave him. When he tells him to leave from Nanded and to set up a system which will demolish the hegemony which Aurangzeb had created. And just like in those words, he has written that in Zafarnama, कि जिथे उन्हां दे घोड़े भी तुरदे ने, उहदे थल्ले इन्नी अग लग जावे कि उन्हां दे घोड़े ना खड़ सकण, which basically means spare not a single spot where any force of domination is still left out. Vision was very, very clear. So question for all of us is, how can I become focused on Sikh vision? That's all Banda Singh Bahadur had. All he had was a vision and Guru's Thapada, everything else he gathered. Second thing, can we adopt a zero tolerance for racist and sexist behavior in our own circles? And our circles are pretty much home, if you're a student, school, a Gurdwara, and a workplace. Baki sara to bahut gahan diyan gallan ne. This is all we can do. He had a zero tolerance on people who misbehaved. He had, so let's take it further. From Sikhi, we keep accepting all the nonsenses which caste and race and tribe and gender politics is bringing us in our own circles. At some point, we got to take a stand to create a zero tolerance for it. So question is, republics can be made even today, or the idea of Khalsa Raj can be revived. We say this in Ardas every day, and we repeat Bhai Nand Lal's line, Raj karega Khalsa, ki rahe na koi, khwar hoye sab milenge, bache sharan jo hoye. Khwar is frustration, sharan is refuge. If we take refuge in the Guru, that's how we get out of our frustration, and that's how Khalsa will rule. So to a minimum angle of that, the very concrete or very actionable item is adopt a zero policy, zero tolerance, at least in our life, in our personal lives on towards racist and sexist behavior. And then third is, if we have the Guru's vision, we are active in changing our own realities, then we can take on the bigger issues. Pick, champion an issue, stand for underrepresented issues and peoples. Poverty, conflicts happening from ethnic, religious, and gender angles, whether it's Dalits in India, to immigration reform movement in America right now. I mean, I know I've seen a couple of blogs on it, and that's the end of it. Let's go beyond being a paper pusher or signing a petition. Something more is needed. Something much more is needed. Environmental issues, human rights issues, and I'm not saying this only related to Punjab and Sikhs. I'm saying in general. Pick your issue, champion that issue. Banda Singh Bahadur championed a issue. He did not have time to create great poetry. So, apanu lagna na that I can do everything. No. Pick an issue. His issue was he understood the Sikh vision, and he took that element of the vision which he could gather people to do, and he got it done. So lessons for us is clarify Sikh vision, at least create zero tolerance for racist and sexist behavior, and champion one issue beyond your locale. Pick any global issues. I looked at, the solutions which Copenhagen conference did 2 years ago on how to eradicate top 10 issues in the world. Let's study, not just study it, let's actually champion one of those issues, and those are the lessons for us. I'm ready for any Q&A. I'm done with what I was trying to present from how do you create a Sikh nation in 20 months, and Banda Singh Bahadur did it because he was focused on Guru's vision. Simply, that's all it was. Everything else, he just gathered people and ammunition and strategies, but he was focused on Guru's mission, on Guru's vision, and that's the whole point of how things can get done very quickly if we are focused. Otherwise, even 25 years later, we don't have responses to what can be done to those who were killed in Delhi, for example. Again, maybe we are not focused on Guru's mission. That's why we are not able to do that. I'm open to larger questions. Any questions related to the presentation today? Yeah, I'm getting another question, several of them. Okay. There is a mic. Harjot, you have a mic. You want to ask your question? Harjot from Toronto.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Yeah, my question is, hearing about Banda Singh Bahadur and his mission, my question is, recently 2 Sikhs were beheaded in the Peshawar region of Pakistan by the Taliban. And I was at a meeting with somebody one time, and I told them that at that time, I said, I swear on my life that I vow to, get revenge for, the killing of 2 Sikhs by the Taliban. And he looked at me and he goes, "Get up on the like, realistically speaking, 2010, you have more important issues. Like, who do you think you are?" And I was quiet from then. And in my mind, I'm like, well, it's not khoon ka badla khoon. That's not what it is. It's basically a bigger message to the world. In my opinion. So in 2010, my question is, how can we, as the Sikh family, get, I wouldn't say revenge, but how can we even the odds, in your opinion, from what has just happened to the Sikhs? This killing, I don't know about in the States, but in Toronto, the media picked it up so quick, and there were various plots and stuff like that. So how can we, as the Sikhs, I don't know, is it get revenge? Or I guess my question is, do we want revenge, or how do we even the odds or address this issue that 2 of our Sikhs have been killed by Muslim extremists for no reason? And what is our role in 2010?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for asking that question, Harjot. So let me put it in perspective. This is not to undermine or what you have mentioned, but this kind of beheading is occurring with all communities, including Sikhs. And I'm not saying that the response should come only now, but how about when 100 and 250,000, as reported by Politics of Genocide by Inderjeet Singh Jadji, in last 25 years has happened to the Sikhs in Punjab. So first question is, let's put it in perspective. There is always a killing, and no killing is justified, especially an extremist one. But we need to put it in context with that there are many more bigger things going on. So that's first response. Second is, the idea of vengeance. Let's go back to the quote which Banda Singh Bahadur gave. He says, you know what? It's a deliverer of justice which needs to operate in us. Today, justice can be delivered in multiple ways. If everyone just did parts to recognize what happened, it ain't gonna do it. You got to champion a cause. Who among us, among Sikhs, is championing fighting for religious extremism in Afghanistan? We don't even volunteer and think about that. It's not about that 2 Sikhs have been killed. During Banda Singh Bahadur, so many Sikhs were killed as well. It wasn't about revenging or avenging that. It was about how do you assure a place, an area, a Begumpura idea, a state where these things don't happen. So I would say we need to participate in fighting fanaticism in Afghanistan as well as in our own neighborhoods. Third element which I want to bring in is, response to that can come locally by Afghani Sikhs, and I'm sure they did few things. I read news reports on that. but we should
I read
not
that.
again reduce it to killing of 2 Sikhs and we get worked up about it so much. There is so much killing taking up place in the world, including a lot of Sikh killings in India, and we do not respond to that collectively because we are not focused on the vision. So what I'm asking you to do is, if you want to create a response, don't wait for we response. You find organizations to do it. If nobody's doing it, if this is the issue for you, then create a campaign and run it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dad.
Sure, no problem. Then we have another question from Preeti in San Antonio, no mic. So the question is the seal and coin written in Urdu and not Gurmukhi because of Mughal Raj and Urdu being the language of common man? Excellent question. Thank you for asking that. Actually, they are both written in Persian. So it looks like Urdu. So script is same. It's a Perso-Arabic script. Language is Persian. And you have it right, because the state languages at the time were Persian. And that's the script which it's using, because this was an act of defiance, an alternative which is being put together against the state in the creation of a new state. So the state languages in those days, and until even Ranjit Singh period, were Farsi or Persian. That's why they're in Persian. Thank you for asking that. Okay, I'm getting a lot of comments. I'm going to skip over those. That's it. Then we have more comments. Anything else? No. Okay. Ajit Singh Matharu from New York doesn't have a mic. So the question is, can Harinder comment on the issue of public image with relation to the recent controversy in Canadian media over moderate and extremist Sikhs? Sure, I can comment. It again comes down to how do you take on, firstly, how you not feed into the propaganda which the media generates for you, and secondly, how can we restrict our own actions so we don't give them even a slim reason for them to even bring this out again. So the first part is we need to, this modern extremist thing has been going on for about 15 years there. You have Kripan incidences which have taken this to next heights, which is internally we need to deal with it. But externally what needs to really happen is there was a conversation going on. One of the solutions could be that we don't have Kulveer Singh from Toronto and I were talking about this, and I've had a couple of other emails on how do you handle this situation. So at minimum, we don't even have best practices for Gurdwaras right now, or best practices for Kripan, or best practices for how do you deal with this kind of issue in Canada. And none of these sort of incidents have even provoked a response that we need to create these things. So we are always reacting to things afterwards. So one thing which needs to happen is people like Baltej, which I was very happy to see his interview where he went on, and whatever you might think of him, but we need to highlight these stories where he went on, which is very much in contrast with an Indian general. And I'm digressing a bit, but I think it's an important point. When 2 years ago, a retired general, J.J. Singh, comes to US and goes to Gurdwaras in US and Canada, he gets up and stands up there and he says, I am an Indian general first and then Sikh second. I don't think we should be publicizing those stories. But Baltej Singh till now, again, this is in Canada, his article comes up and he says, I am a Sikh first, then a Canadian soldier. I like that idea. So we need to publicize this within Sikhs at least, that when we go publicly, we are able to say that in front of a Canadian crowd, a Sikh crowd, so our response is same. Coming back to the negative imaging, there is not a single organization I am aware of in Canada which does what Sikh Coalition and SALDEF tries to do in US. I know World Sikh Organization tries to do that, but we need to create, I know there was a lawsuit which they filed against Kim Bolan once, but externally we really need to create an external pressure, a policy which some sort of a pressure group of lawyers who is taking these guys to task when they misreport on these things. So internally we need to be vigilant about our own behavior. Externally we need to take them to task. And we got so many MLAs and MPs. I haven't seen any good response from them and how to create some sort of a caucus. They should be having their own caucus by now. So there are things which we can do from those three elements. That's all we can, I guess. I hope it sort of answered your question as to what the solutions are. We know why these things are happening, but there are some solutions. So thank you for asking that, Ajit. We have another question. From Sabpreet Dhingra. I take it he doesn't have a mic, so I'll read the question. How can you fight racism at your local level, that is your workplace, when you yourself are a victim? The job factors add such. Well, you know, I'm not an expert on fighting racism from a legal perspective, but even if you are a victim, I think you have a more of a reason to fight it and not perceive it as a victim. That's the first thing I'll say from a Sikh angle. This is what every fight Sikhs had. Every political fight we have and every sort of religious fight we have had in Indian constraints and outside India, including fighting for immigration, citizenry in US. So firstly, you have a more of a reason to do it if it has happened to you. What you need to do is find out the legal angles of fighting it within the Canadian law, and then secondly, work with other. I'm sure there is a local agency who can help you with that. From a Sikh perspective, Gurdwara should have again a one-pager like Toronto area, GTA and DC are the two biggest populations. In GTA area, there should be a support group which tells you exactly what to do, just like Sikh Coalition tries to do here in US. So if there isn't one like that, you, Kulveer, a couple of Gurdwara committees, if they can, or other lawyers, Tejdeep, other people get together, create this one-pager, take this as an opportunity, Sabpreet, to create a system for Sikhs so they are not victims of this kind of mentality anymore. Thanks for asking that. There is no mic from Prabjot, and his question from Edmonton is, my question is, like you said, the purpose of Sikhs is to capture political power and establish egalitarian society. How can we mobilize towards establishing Khalsa Raj in Punjab once again? How questions are always very tough to answer. I think at minimum, the issue right now is of representation there. Yesterday I learned, here is some a very relevant thing. Yesterday I learned one of the Rajya Sabha seat has just opened up, and there are 3 days to get that nominated. Well, I know who the CM is. We know what his reputation is, but Punjabi di kahavat hai kai bari khoti chwani bhi kam aa jandi hai. So why don't we try to find somebody and who can get nominated? Maybe he can put some things. I'm just saying this. We don't have a understanding of how to fight some of these political battles or these civil liberties battles. In Punjab, it's also a very complex issue. And one of the ways it can be handled is we need to understand those people and work with those people who are trying to do things on the ground. There are people who are trying to fight economic issues and political issues and religious issues, and I think we should be supporting them, both in terms of creating a better explanation of what their agendas are, so they are not maligned, just like modernism and extremism and have become the labels in Canada, in America, and worldwide, and in India. You don't want this thing to be perceived as a Khalistani movement versus a non-Khalistani movement. I'm saying that on purpose, because the idea is, how do you capture political power these days is captured by electoral processes as well. We don't even participate in it. I can sit on a sideline and bitch out, for example, Badal and Capital, and say, nobody else is doing it, or others are trying to do it, but they don't have anything. Well, we can do that, or we can try to create, if that's what you want, a true electoral reform. But sitting here in Edmonton, I don't know how you can do that. So all I'm saying is, look at people who are creating good policies, or talk about good policies, whether it's Harvinder Singh Phulka, whether it's Babaji at Khadur Sahib from an environmental angle, and that's the third point I had on the slide. That people who do these things, either join them. If nobody is doing it, then create your own campaign with a guru's vision in mind, not a personal or a tribal or ethnicity sort of an angle to it. I think that there is another question from, it's a long question and I don't see a mic or a non-mic, so from Yadvinder Singh Manhas, no mic, so I have to read it. Okay, question is, it's long, so bear with me. And I think this is going to be a last question because we're running out of time. Khalsa Divas Nagar Kirtans are successfully concluded in almost every part of the world. Most of us may have seen Khalistan flags in some parades. I live in Surrey, BC. I have seen and read a lot of controversial statements from both sides, organizers and city authorities, which were finally settled somehow. However, the reason behind this controversy was running a float with the 20th century martyrs on it. If you can comment and elaborate on the need of setting up a Sikh state Khalistan, whether we should have it in one particular part of the world, or we all Sikhs should work together to make the world a Khalistan Guru's vision Begumpura. You know, this is not really up to me how the Guru's vision is going to be implemented. All I am saying is, in our local realities, we should implement it. At minimum, we need to do that. If there is enough cohesion and coherence, you know, you can make any paper organization or constitutions. We know the reality. Our constitutions from our political parties to our gurdwaras are decent, but they're never implemented. So I'm not interested in creating a document which is reflecting some sort of a theory, whether it's conspiracy or otherwise political, to create a nation or nation state or whatever republic which we talked about earlier. At minimum, come up with a plan to change your local reality. If enough of local realities are changed, we will clarify what is the vision at a larger world level or a national level. We are not in a position, I don't think we are in a position to even get there, because we don't have an understanding of Guru's vision and an interpretation of that for our own local realities. That's the reality we need to confront today. So nation or nation state or state, yes, we know it existed with Khalsa Raj, with Banda Singh Bahadur, and Ranjit Singh walked in its vicinity during his period, and there was a Punjabi Suba movement, and there was a movement in the last 20 years to create a separate country. But we need to evaluate it for ourselves first. How can I play a role on it? I don't have, and I'm not a big believer in creating big blueprints for international conventions. We need to create or change our local realities. Understand Guru's vision and implement it to best of your ability. And enough people do that, then we can create a national and international vision for it. So I want to, okay, one more question maybe. I know there's so many coming up, but we are really out of time. There is no mic from Prabjot Singh again. Is the Khalsa administration system economically, socially, politically, essentially socialist? Again, you know, the danger in these labels is, are we socialist? Are we communist? Are we capitalist? Are we mixed political economy? You tell me. All I know is that as soon as we start using certain labels, somebody will come up with an agenda to demolish us and will label us. I'll tell you this much, that when it suited communists in India, Guru Nanak became a communist. So when it suits Sikhs in America, then Guru Nanak becomes a capitalist. You know, if they choose only blindly to support Republicans, for example. I'm nothing against Republicans, and I'm not just for Democrats. I'm saying blindly when we support this. I've heard rich Sikhs say that. Well, you know, I'm businessman, so you know, my number one priority is to save taxes, so I'm just going to be a Republican. Anyway, my point is, let's get away from these titles and really think of, we have not worked hard enough to figure out what really our systems are. We need to create, either have more PhDs to understand it, or more layperson defining these things through their local projects. And this is how we'll be able to understand what the Guru's vision is of those things. And hopefully one day we'll have our own term to describe this. Right now we should not be aping or copying other terms. I thank all of you for joining us today. Please don't leave. I have a couple of more things to do. I also want to thank Punjab Digital Library for providing the images. It's their courtesy, and Baba Banda Singh Bahadur Sikh Society from Canada in Abbotsford for sponsoring this webinar. That's how it was made free for all of you. And also Sikh Research Institute team for making all of this happen, all the volunteer staff members and everyone else. Now I want to ask you 3 things you can do today before you leave. Shortly, there's going to be a feedback session. It's going to be launched, and if you can fill all of that, it'll get us more understanding on how to do this more effectively. Secondly, if you want to attend SIDC or sponsor a webinar, please send an email to info@sikri.org. And if you want to bring the exhibition entitled Khalsa Raj, Banda, Battles and Body Politic to your city, send an email to info@punjabdigitalibrary.org. They're already running this in Fatehgarh Sahib and in Melbourne, Australia. If you would like to bring it to your neighborhoods, please contact them. We are trying to make this a community exhibition. We don't want to go to museums. We want to take it to Sikh communities so they are aware of what the Khalsa Raj was. Thank you for joining us and sharing this Saturday with us. Please launch the feedback session. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.